Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the 30th Annual Conference for the Canadian Council for PPP. I'm proud to say that I personally am 30 for 30. I've been here for each and every one of the council conferences over the last 30 years, either live or in person, in camera, as it has been over the last couple of years, but happy we're getting back to normal. Not sure if there's anyone else in the room who's 30 for 30 so far, but you might say I believe in the cause. There are a few others who I think have been around a long time. I cannot see for the lights, but if you see John Beck, I think he might also be a 30 for 30 attendee, as well as one of the original council directors. So after 2 years of meeting up virtually, it's great to be back here in person with all of you again today in person. I hope you're ready for the next 2 days. Get ready to do some serious networking and catch up with old friends. And of course, be sure to take in the dynamic lineup of panels and keynote speakers we have lined up for you. But first, in the spirit of truth and reconciliation, we acknowledge the land we gather on is the traditional territory of many Indigenous nations. Toronto is on the lands of the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. I encourage all of you to take a moment to reflect on these acknowledgements as we gather here over the next 2 days. We'll hear of some important steps on the path to economic reconciliation, including increasingly common approach of Indigenous financial stakes in PPP projects. A lot has changed since we last gathered together in this room in 2019, which seems like a long time ago. Some of the issues we were concerned with then continue to be pain points today. Risk allocation, financing structures, third-party interfaces, and several other old chestnuts. But they were superseded, and sometimes exacerbated, by what happened just 4 months later as COVID-19 took hold across Canada and around the globe. The infrastructure sector encountered a myriad of serious challenges arising from the pandemic, coupled with a number of natural disasters, from flooding to fires, heat waves to hurricanes. These last 2 years have been really something. Our industry has confronted these challenges head on. It has pivoted quickly to find innovative solutions and is continuing to evolve. Quite simply, we can't afford to sit still. We seem to be on the other side of the pandemic now, fingers crossed, but all of us in this room are continuing to deal with the fallout. The labor market remains considerably tight, inflation is high, and there are kinks in the global supply chain, from windows to steel girders, causing prices to skyrocket and become increasingly volatile. Pricing projects and accurately predicting risks that never seemed so important, and so fraught for both the public and private sectors. That's why it's so important for us to get together again to talk about the issues, explore new opportunities, share the solutions, and the lessons learned. We're also here, of course, to celebrate the best of our peers, teams that are pushing the boundaries of what a public-private partnership can be and should be. We've been rolling out P3s in Canada for 3 decades now, and it's amazing to see that all of you can still find ways to do projects differently and better. With all this change happening, it's also critical for the Council to evolve in tandem. The last few years have been fairly chaotic at the Council, but we found our feet and we're ready for the next wave of P3 activity. We have a new strategic plan, including a reinvigorated vision and mission that better reflects what we stand for, the current state of the market, and our plans to expand our market engagement and thought leadership. And as many of you know, Lisa Mitchell joined us almost 12 months ago as the Council's new President and CEO. Lisa's in the front row. You'll see lots of her over the next 2 days, and please say hello. Lisa and the team have been working incredibly hard with our members and the Board of Directors to advance our thought leadership, policy, and research activities. And on pulling this terrific conference together, a well-deserved shout-out to the compact but mighty Council team, in addition to Lisa, Andrew Koolsbergen, Jennifer Robinson, Carla Walmsley, and Linda Cabral. Great job bringing this together. Thank you. I'm incredibly excited by the enthusiasm of our public and private sector members to constructively work through the Council to air their concerns, push for new opportunities, and to protect and advance the Made in Canada P3 model and its key principles. After all, the Council exists to bring together all levels of government, Indigenous communities, and the private sector to have honest face-to-face discussions, to talk about what's working and, where necessary, what's not working, to sometimes have the fierce family conversations that are needed to break through the impasses and get back to the most important P in P3, partnership. Lisa will provide more details on what the Council is working on towards a revitalized Council 2.0 in her upcoming keynote speech. But a word of warning, we want and we need all of you to become even more actively involved. Your expertise and your perspective are incredibly valuable to your peers. Now, in the midst of all this evolution at the Council, I also have some personal news to share. It's been my great honor so far to serve on the Council Board of Directors for 23 years, including the last 6 years as chair. But at this important inflection point for the Council, it's time for someone else to take on this incredible opportunity and lead the Council's board through the next chapter, which is why I'll be stepping down officially from the board at our upcoming annual general meeting next week on November 30th. Now, this has been a planned transition. We've had an orderly and structured transition plan underway for the last year. Joanne Mullen has been acting as vice chair of the Council, and we've got a plan well advanced, and you'll hear more on how that's turning out after the AGM next week. I'd like to thank my fellow board members, those that are serving with me now and have served with me through the years. It's been a great pleasure. Your friendships, your sense of humor, your keen market awareness, and your dedication have been tremendously inspiring. Thank you all. The Council's on the right path now, and the sector, though sometimes facing a few bumps in the road, is tremendously dynamic and resilient. I remain personally bullish on P3s. They continue to offer better value for Canadians and deliver quality infrastructure, services, and management when used on the right projects, properly structured, and where value for money can be demonstrated. And though I'm about to step down from the board duties, I'll continue to be actively involved in the industry and look forward to chatting with many of you here at P3 2022 and beyond. So a couple of housekeeping items just before we move on to our next speaker. The Council would like to thank Ellis Don for providing the Wi-Fi at the conference. The code to get into the Wi-Fi is Ellis Don, ELLISDON, all caps. We'd also like to mention our first night reception is happening tonight at the ballroom, but not this ballroom. The Ballroom Toronto is located a short 5 to 7 minute walk away at 145 John Street at the corner of Richmond and John. But please come, there will be delicious food, drinks, fun activities, and including bowling starting at 5:30 p.m. And thank you also to our sponsors of that event, BDO, Bruce Power, EY, Flatiron, Graham, OPG, SEMP, and WSP for making tonight happen. And now it gives me great pleasure to introduce a short video from ACON, P3 2022 Diamond sponsor, followed by remarks by Steve Nakin, Executive VP of ACON and President of ACON Concessions. As many of you know, ACON has been there from the start in Canada's P3 sector. They're an industry leader that has championed the model and led innovation in the approaches. They've also been a tremendous long-time supporter of the Council. Their sponsorship of our virtual conference during the pandemic supported us to carry on to today, and their ongoing support has been key to the success of this year's conference. And now I've lost a page. Following the introduction of the ACON panel, we'll meet with and hear from Steve Nakin. Steve also sits with me on the board of the Council, but will also be stepping down from the board this fall after serving since 2013. He's been a wonderful, engaged colleague who is a tremendously respected voice at the table and who was key to the renewed strategic direction at the Council. So thank you everyone for being here with us. It's going to be an exciting 2 days. Now let's roll the video.